Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Unexpected Entrepreneur Podcast. Today, we are back with another guest episode, and we have Lauren here. We're going to talk about a 3-step guide to prioritizing what matters, which I feel like everyone can use a little bit more of this. So I'm really excited to talk about this. But before we jump in, do you want to introduce yourself and tell everyone who you are, what you do, everything like that?
Sure. So my name is Lauren Glynn. I am a systems and operations consultant for service-based and digital product business owners, generally women. And I help people sort of figure out how all the back end things of their business. What software are they using? What are the systems? What are the processes? Because that's in my title. What's what does it look like when you hire your first person? Like, how do you actually make your processes work with a VA or with a social media manager? So I help service-based and digital product-based business owners figure all of that stuff out. I also help them with productivity and focus and how do I know what I'm actually supposed to be working on in my business? What's actually going to be driving change, driving income and value for my clients, all of those good things. So that's who I am.
I love that. I feel like there's a lot of, especially in like the online business space, there's a lot of systems that you can use, and there's a lot of
Yes.
people telling you to use different systems, or you need to use this one, or you need to add this one. And I feel like sometimes just having someone be like, here's what you actually need, here's what can actually be combined in these 7 programs, you can actually just do in this one program, and like simplifying and making everything systematized is something that we can all use a little bit more of.
Yes, or this one all-in-one program is actually terrible and you shouldn't use it. So it's worth paying a little more for the specialized programs because I see that a lot as well.
No, absolutely. So we're going to dive right in and talk about your 3-step guide to prioritizing what matters. So when we're thinking about that, what is going to be your first step?
So the first step is defining your why. Why are you in business? What is driving you to be putting yourself out there and finding clients and creating products and marketing? What is the big why behind all of that? Because if you don't understand why you're doing all of this, then it's going to make doing it really hard because you're
Mm-hmm.
not going to have that driving vision, that driving force behind all of it. So it's really important, especially when you first get started, but even as you go on and your business evolves, to be continually refining that vision and refining your why and really reevaluating, okay, my business has changed. And now instead of doing one-on-one, I'm doing, digital products. Is it still the same vision that I had? Is it still what I
Mm-hmm.
was really looking for? And by defining your why, you're helping to answer those questions for yourself. You're helping to give you a guide. That country twang just came out a little bit. That was weird. You're helping to give yourself that guide of, okay, this is why I'm doing this within my business and it's supporting this larger vision. Maybe your why is you're a mom who wants some extra income in your
Mm-hmm.
family and you're not working full time, but you're home with the kids, but you have a little bit of extra time. I know that's probably unlikely for mothers. I've never been a mother, so I guess I can't speak to that. But your why is that you want to bring in some extra income, but
Mm-hmm.
also be able to spend time with your kids. You want to be able to see them growing up. You want to be around for that. Or your why is that you hated corporate and you really needed to leave. I'm speaking from experience. You really needed to leave and you didn't like working for other people. And you have this gift that you want to share with the world, and you want to share it in a way that feels authentic, and you want to share it in a way that feels like you're really providing support for the people who need it. When I was in the corporate world, I was a coach for teams, and I was often put on teams because they were told they needed coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you, the hardest thing in the world is to coach people who do not want it. They do not want you there. They think you're an insult that you're there. They think that means that they're doing something wrong. So for me, my why is I wanted to be helping people who wanted my help and who needed my help and who felt intimidated by technology. They felt intimidated by all of the different options out there. They didn't really know what to look for. They didn't know sort of what to do about it. So my why is that I am really good at helping people who don't understand technology not feel stupid about it. Like
Mm-hmm.
not feel like they are, dinosaurs, and not feel like I had a client actually use that term with me yesterday. She's like, please don't think I'm a dinosaur. And I was like, no, like this is why I'm here. I'm here to help you and not make you feel like an idiot and help you understand that it doesn't have to be scary and it doesn't have to be intimidating. So my why is that I really want to help people understand and appreciate technology and use it to the best advantage, and also not be afraid of it. So by figuring out your why, that will really help you define your products. It will define, your approach. It will define how you show up online. So it really is the umbrella that encompasses everything within your business.
And this is something that I absolutely love. This is something that we talk about so much because we even look at it where before we start, building your brand, you need to have a really good understanding of why you are doing this, because that's going to drive, like you said, what you do, how you do it, who you do it for. And if you don't really deeply understand that and can't be like, this is why I do what I do, it's really hard to set up anything else in your business for success, because you are just going to like kind of just go where the wind blows you, and you're never going to have a really defined path. And you might be like, well, I hate doing this, but I'm like here and I'm doing it. Like, that's not what running your own business is about. So having that,
Yeah.
taking the second, taking a step back, really thinking about why you got into this, why you're doing what you're doing, just it helps every single aspect of your business run more smoothly, and helps you kind of figure out the best path as you're, coming to these decisions where you're trying to decide if you want to go one way or the other, or grow a team, or do things on your own, or whatever it might be. Like, it's all kind of rooted in that. Why are you doing what you're doing?
Yeah, and it really helps, like you said, make those decisions. If someone comes up to you and says, "Oh, we want you to be a speaker at this event," but it's not your target audience, it's not people that you really want to help. It could potentially open doors for this other audience, but is that someone you really want to work with?
Mm-hmm.
It's important to have that why, so you can makes making those decisions really easy, and it also makes saying no really easy. And especially we as women have been conditioned to be as accommodating as possible, and to be as helpful as possible. I am
Mm-hmm.
aggressively helpful, I will totally admit that, but it makes saying no to those things a lot easier when you have that in the back of your mind of like, my goal here is to build this business that is as passive as possible, or it doesn't require one-on-one, or it doesn't mean working with this group of people in a non-discriminatory way.
Mm-hmm.
But so having that in the back of your head makes it really easy to say yes to the right things and no to the wrong things. And like you said, not just let the wind blow you in whatever direction.
No, I love that. And I feel like we all say yes, like far too often. And then we end up not being able to actually do the things that we want to do and that we love to do. Or we end up having a terrible work-life balance because we're doing so many things that we can never just take a break and, go enjoy time outside or with friends or with family or whatever it is that you want to do. And I think there's so much power in saying no to things, but sometimes we do feel realistically, not, we don't really need to, but we feel guilty when we say no, and like we're
Mm-hmm.
letting people down. But at the end of the day, we need to do what's right for us. And if that means saying no to this, but we can back it up with like, in my head, I'm saying no to this because it doesn't line up with this. I feel like it can kind of take some of the guilt away from us and be like, no, it's actually because it's not a good fit. I'm not just saying no for the sake of saying no.
Yeah. I'm not just, a jerk. I'm actually like, there's a reason behind it. And you can say
Exactly.
no in a nice way. Like, hey, this isn't this isn't the direction I want to go. Like, if you
Mhm.
feel like you have to couch it, you can, but no is a complete sentence. So
Exactly. Absolutely. So we have figuring out our why. Hopefully we have that set, or we can take some time and think about that and kind of, write it down or have it somewhere so we can always go back to it. What is step number 2?
So, step number 2 is to define your goals. And I know that sounds really closely tied to the why, but the goals are sort of the next level down.
Mm-hmm.
It's what's the more immediate thing that I'm working towards. And I always recommend people set goals that are no more than, I love the book, The 12-Week Year, that are no more than 12 weeks away. You can have larger goals kind of in your head, like that you want to move abroad in a few years, that you want to, what you want your life to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And the 12-week year is really great at helping people sort of set all of these things and figure it out. But set goals that you can then work towards and make
Mhm.
them realistic and make them time bound. We always talk about SMART goals, and I like SMART goals, but I like the habits behind them better. So by defining the goals that you're working towards in sort of a shorter ish term, that can really help drive your focus on what it is that you're working on. So, for example, if your goal is to get 2 new clients in the next 12 weeks, what are the actions that you are directly taking towards getting those 2 new clients? Is posting on social media really going to get you those clients? Has it gotten you clients in the past? Use your history to decide, is that really the path that I want to take? Or are there more lucrative or more better producing ways that I could be using my time? I
Yeah.
don't get clients from social media. I am not super active on it except for kind of threads at this point, but like they don't come to me through social media. I
Mhm.
get clients through, guest trainings, and I get clients through speaking on podcasts. That's how people find me. So that's what I prioritize. So if my goal were to get 2 new clients, then I would be ramping up those things that I've already seen have worked. And if you don't know what works for you yet, then you can be trying a bunch of things, but
Mhm.
I would try to focus it down on a couple of things and not doing everything. But having that goal in mind and knowing, okay, I know that my vision is that I want to help people that actually want help. My goal right now is to get 2 new clients. Okay, now I understand what the actions are that I should be taking, or kind of bleeding into the third one, what the actions are that I should be taking to actually achieve this goal within the next 12 weeks. So, by defining your goals in sort of a shorter time period and having them be really actionable and having them be realistic,
Mhm.
and then creating the habits behind those goals, you can help start working towards building that ideal vision of your business that you're looking for.
And I think that's the key right there is because I feel like we very often are like, okay, here's where I want my business to be. And it's great to have that vision, but it's really hard to be like, I want my business to be at, the 300,000 a year mark. That's great, but how are we actually going to get there? Like, you don't just have a $300,000 year. There's a lot of other things that play into that, and those are really the goals that you need to have and set. And I feel like when we take that, you know, a lot of times we think New Year's, let me make my goals, and you make the goal for the year, and that's great. But like having those shorter goals, those shorter timelines can help, all those little miniature things that seem really small but then add up to that big goal, or even just keeping you motivated, because sometimes it's really hard when you're like, I feel like I'm not hitting any of my goals and like I'm not doing it. But when you actually break it down and you're like, well, no, I my goal was to do, 2 new clients every 3 months, and I'm actually doing that. Like, I am doing that goal and I'm getting there, and like I'm building up and progressing. I think breaking things down a little bit more is a little underrated, and we don't necessarily do that in our own businesses enough. But it's what's going to kind of keep you moving, keep you going forward, keep you motivated, and kind of keep you accountable with those goals. Because it's really hard to stay accountable for a year long type goal. But if you're like, I have 3 months to do this, you have to keep yourself on track and accountable.
Yeah, and I think part of it too is developing the plan behind the goal. Like, you
Hmm.
don't just set a goal and you're like, oh, well, if it happens, it happens. Like, you set the goal and you're like, all right, what are the steps I'm going to take? And again, we're kind of bleeding into the third one. What are the steps I'm going to take to actually achieve this goal?
Hmm.
And it's a lot easier, like you said, to do that for a shorter term goal than it is to do for that like 12-month goal. And it's a lot easier when your goal is specific. 2 clients is a very specific goal.
Hmm.
So, what have you done in the past that you can then replicate to go get 2 more clients? Or what can you expand on? Or how can you scale it? It's a lot easier to focus your efforts when your goal is specific, as opposed to, like you said, $300,000. Okay, but what are you going to do to actually get there? What products are you going to sell? How many clients are you going to sign? What sponsorships are you going to have? Whatever
Hmm.
your business is, you have to really focus yourself. And we as humans are terrible with our attention. We are terrible with focusing on anything for 12, even 12 weeks can be really
Hmm.
hard, never mind 12 months. So having those shorter term things that are really helping us focus our time, focus our attention and energy, and especially if your business is part time, having a way to define what it is that you're working towards really can help you focus the time that you're spending on your business and making sure that you're not doing things that aren't working towards. Now, it doesn't mean you can't have larger goals or longer term goals, but it means that when push comes to shove and you're looking at your to-do list and you're saying, oh, I have to do all of these things, which one of those things is going to really push you towards that short term, that next most important goal that you've defined for yourself. So I don't want people walking away from this thinking, I don't need long-term goals. I don't need to know what's going on in 5 years. No, because that will still help drive you. And a lot of what the 12-week year talks about is what's your vision for your life. And like mine includes following the cold weather. Like I hate the Texas summer, so I want to be able to just leave for the summer. And I want my business to support that. And like, what does that look like for me? And so all of the goals that I then set for my 12-week periods are goals that are helping move me towards being able to follow the cold weather and not have to be in Texas all summer. And so it can really help you, define not just your goals, but also your everyday work.
And I really like what you said about being specific, because I feel like that's a key thing, because we can say, I want to book more clients, I want to sell more products, but more, like, what does more mean? How do you qualify that? And it's really hard to, look at it and look back and be like, did I hit that goal? Did I, like, if I sold one more, or if I booked one more client, like, is that what I really wanted? Or did I actually want to book 5 more clients or sell, 30 more products? So I think taking the time to be like, okay, what is realistic in this period? And what is my goal to actually hit? My specific goal, whatever it might be. I feel like the more specific we can get, the easier it is for us to, like, visualize what it actually looks like, keep progress of where we actually are within that goal, and kind of what we can do to hit it and to get to that next step.
Yeah, and it's really tempting to make those vague goals, and I am guilty of it. One of the goals that I set for myself for this period was get more consistent on YouTube. Like, what does that mean? Get more consistent? Like post once a month? Because that would be more consistent than what I'm doing now. Like, so I fell into the trap myself and did not set a specific enough goal, and then it kind of fell by the wayside, and I haven't really done anything towards it because it was so nebulous that I just didn't do anything. So yes, getting specific is really important, and I like what you mentioned, like making it realistic, but I think it's also important to make it a little bit scary. Like getting, if you've only ever had one client ever in the past, and getting 2 new clients is kind of scary because you haven't had 2 clients in the past in a short period of time. So it's important that the goals are realistic, but also a little bit scary to kind of give you that kick in the pants that you need to really reach towards them and make them happen.
Yeah, we always have to make sure that we're pushing ourselves out of that kind of comfort zone, because if we're not, we're going to run into the issue of kind of staying stagnant, and you might be booking the same amount of clients, but you're never going to get more. You're never going to sell more products because you're like, I'm comfortable right here. I don't want to push too hard, or I don't want to do something that might not work out or anything like that. Like, business is all about taking risks, trying new things, seeing what works, and kind of pushing ourselves to see what we can end up doing.
Yeah. And it's funny, I was listening to a podcast that was all about, doubling down on the boring stuff too. Like if something's working for you and you have a goal of, if you got 1 client through this medium and you want to get 2 more clients, then unfortunately, like the shiny new thing may not be the right move. Like you might have to double down on the stuff that you have already been doing and is kind of boring. Like that's part of business, and you can make space for the exciting things, but they shouldn't take over from the tried and true, the things that have already worked for you, the boring stuff that you maybe don't want to do anymore, but if you want to keep getting clients, then you might have to.
Yeah, we can't underrate how good it is to have something that works, and like a system that works, or a platform that works. Like if it's working, and if you're getting the clients or the customers out of it that you want to get out of it, it's worth it to keep going. Now, if you're in there and you're like, I'm getting clients, but I don't like any of the clients that I'm getting from this, that is something completely different.
Yes.
And you might be hitting the wrong audience, or whatever. And the headache of having these clients that you don't love working with, or that aren't fit for your system or your product or your service or whatever it is, might not be worth it. But if it's working, like, don't fix it if it isn't broke. Like, just keep going with it.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've touched on it a little bit. We have the why, we have setting goals. What is your third step to making sure that we're prioritizing everything that matters?
So the third step is going to be develop habits to support your goals. And I know that may sound a little weird to people because people are like, well, I want a task list. Like I want steps. I want all the things that I have to do. And yes, you need those things, but what you really need is a system for actually making it happen.
Hmm.
And what I mean by that is, what are you doing every week to work towards these goals? Because generally, you're not going to be doing unique things every, back to the boring discussion. You're going to be doing unique things every week. For example, I have a VA who goes and finds potential leads for me and people that I can collaborate and things like that. So part of my action plan is to sit down every week and review the spreadsheet that he creates
Hmm.
of all the potential people that I could reach out to. And then I give them a goal, a green or a red, and I reach out to the green people. And, it's real boring, but it's part of my habit. It's part of my process for continually following up and reaching towards my goals.
Hmm.
So it's not so much about creating a task list so much as it is about creating habits that support the goals and the vision that you want, because what you build now is going to be how you get to the larger vision and how you get to what you want your life to look like. So if you want 2 new clients, what are some habits that you can be doing every week to go out and find those clients? Maybe it's posting regularly on Threads. Maybe it's writing a blog post every week to help draw in clients to give you more content when you're posting on other social media. Maybe it's working with a VA and reviewing the spreadsheet every week. Like it's really important that you're not looking at it as a task list, but you're looking at it as habits that you're developing to help you towards the goals that you're trying to achieve. Because by developing habits, it's a lot easier to sort of keep up with it
Hmm.
than every week coming in and having a different task list that you then have to look at and figure out. And again, it's embracing the boring sometimes. It's, doing the same thing over and over again because it works or because you can see results from it. So it's important that you're building your life and building your business around these habits and this consistency so that you can continually reach your goals and create, finally reach that vision that you're trying to create for your life.
And I like the idea of reframing this as not like as creating habits and not just like having a, checklist of everything that you have to do every week. Because I think sometimes, I mean, I know I fall into it. We all fall into it of you have the checklist of everything that you need to get done and you're just like, okay, I'll just push that to tomorrow. I'll just push that to tomorrow. And then it just eternally gets pushed the next day and never actually gets done. But if you're thinking about it as this is a habit that I'm going to do every single day or every week or whatever it might be, then it's not I'm going to push it to the next day. It's this is just something I do every day or this is something I do every week. And it can kind of help that like not delaying things, not being like this isn't, important. I can get to this tomorrow. Like it is important and it's going to help you reach your goals. So like it needs to be something that's done and that's you know, being consistent and not getting pushed off to the side or things like, oh well, this is more important. I can just do this later. Like I love that kind of it doesn't feel like a big thing, but I feel like mindset wise, it can be a really
Yes.
big switch.
Yeah, the mindset is a big one. And the other thing that I find too is for me and my clients is blocking out time in your calendar.
Hmm.
If you have a habit every week of something that you do, for example, writing a blog post, then if you block out time every week to do that, or if you're batching them then once a month or however you're doing it, but it's always on your calendar and that time is reserved and nobody can book over that
Hmm.
time, then you're a lot more likely to make it a habit and you're a lot more likely to follow through than you are if it's just something like, oh, I'll just get to it at some point this week. It's a lot easier to make it to be successful at it if you actually dedicate time, block out the time. I'm a huge fan of time blocking. I go in once, on Monday mornings and
Hmm.
actually block out whatever it is, whatever work I have that week or whatever habits I have to keep up with that week. And some of the things are already on there, like review my lead spreadsheet. I do Monday and Friday. It's already reserved as time on my calendar. I don't have to add it every week. It shows up automatically. And, putting those habits together, putting them and really dedicating time to them on your calendar makes them real and it makes it a lot easier to stick to. Now, you might still be tempted to kind of push it off. Something new and shiny comes along and you really want to do this other thing, but at least it's already visible on your calendar and
Hmm.
you're making the conscious decision to say, this other thing is more important than this habit that I've been holding on to for however long. And different mindset. Like you
Mm-hmm.
were saying, that's a different mindset of, oh, this other thing is more important, let me move this off, as opposed to just never putting it on the calendar, never seeing it, never thinking about it. So by having it on the calendar, by committing to time to it every week, you're much more likely to follow through and actually achieve your goal than you are if you just kind of have a running list and it's somewhere else and you never see it, because we're all buried in our calendars all day. At
Mm-hmm.
least I am buried in my calendar all day long. So it's a lot easier to see what it is that you have to do and have to accomplish if it's all in one place and you've dedicated time to it and it's not easy to move or reschedule.
Exactly. I think it goes back to that same kind of idea of getting specific with things, being like, okay, on Wednesdays at noon, this is when I'm going to do this. It's on my calendar, protecting your time, making sure that nothing else is going to overlap. Because I know we fall into it a lot. We have stuff, in our mind scheduled, or we have a tentative thing on the calendar, but then something gets scheduled or something comes up, and then it just kind of gets moved around, pushed around. But having like a dedicated, protected time where this is where you're going to do it, super specific. It's the same time every day, every week. So even like your body is like, okay, it's noon on Wednesday. I need to go write the blog post. Like your mind's already going there. You already know what to expect. And I feel like it can just make it so much easier and less stressful knowing that it's not this floating thing over your head that just needs to get done. You're like, no, on Wednesday, I'm going to get this done. And I don't have to worry about it until Wednesday. And I can go do all these other things, and then on Wednesday I'll deal with it.
Yeah, I think there's two pieces of that too. There's the mental clarity of just getting it out of your head and putting
Mm-hmm.
it on a calendar, and then you don't have to think about it, like you said, until it comes up. It's off because there's so much mental load that we're carrying as business owners that I find that if I write something down, like, put it in my to-do list, it's so much easier to just forget about it,
Mm-hmm.
intentionally forget about it, so that it's not like weighing, oh, I have to remember to do this thing, and I have to remember to send that email, and I have to remember to create this presentation. If it's written down, I don't have to think about it until that due date pops up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's partly that, and it's also, we're reserving time for other people on our calendars all the time. I have several scheduler links that people can use. It's really easy for them to go and take time from me. Why are we not reserving time for ourselves in the same way? Why are we not committing to working towards our goals with that same level of dedication and that same level of protecting that time?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's really important as business owners to understand that we are valuable. Like, our time is valuable. There's only so many hours in the day, especially if you're part-time or you're still working a corporate job. It's really important that you are protecting the time that you have and focusing on the most value add activities, and not just sort of letting it fall by the wayside, or not over prioritizing other people's activities
Mm-hmm.
and not your own. And bonus tip I'm going to throw out here, I want people to really consider, especially if you're full-time, but if you're part-time, this can work too. Consider only having specific days for meetings.
Mm-hmm.
Do not, consider, maybe only, like I do, Tuesdays and Thursdays. It's Wednesday today because that was when you guys are available. But, I only allow people to book onto my calendar on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then if I want to go outside that, that's my choice.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not giving people free reign over my calendar, because I find that I really need heads down time to focus. I don't want people contacting me. I don't want to be context switching between, oh, I'm working on this presentation over here. Oh, I have to jump on this call over here with this person. Who are they? What are we talking about? Are we networking? Are we doing a podcast interview? So having those dedicated days, and like, I don't do any work other than meetings on those days, because I am just so frazzled. I've realized lately that I'm an extroverted introvert, I think. And so, like, talking to other people, I enjoy doing it, but it's really draining for
Mm-hmm.
me. So I can't expect myself to then also do brain work on top of that. So I really want to encourage people to start considering having, depending on how many meetings you're having, maybe one day a week, maybe
Mm-hmm.
that's enough. But I like 2 days a week because it gives people some options, and people cannot book on my calendar outside of those 2 days a week unless I offer up those times to them. And I'm making that conscious choice to say, oh, your calendar doesn't work with mine, so let's find a time that does work for both of us. So bonus tip there for everyone for reaching your goals and organizing your time a little bit better.
Yeah, this is something that we've implemented, and I guess I'll say have attempted to implement it and get better at, because we run into it all the time where we're in meetings, and then like, or we have 3 or 4 in a day, but then we still have other things that we need to get done for our business, and we're trying to go back and forth, but then every 45 minutes you're getting interrupted to go to another meeting. It's so hard to sit down and be focused and like actually be productive. So being like, okay, Tuesdays are just gonna be meetings. And there's some days like we don't love having meetings on Fridays because it's the end of the week and we don't love
I do
having
not do meetings on Friday.
yeah,
Mondays and
so
Fridays, I do not do meetings. I refuse. If I can, I'll avoid it.
yeah, so it's finding out what works for you and then making sure that you, like you said, are protecting your time and you're giving yourself the same time and the space that you give other people, because at the end of the day we also need to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves and we're taking care of our own business and our own mental health and our own well-being. So having that time being like, no, this is it. I'm leaving this. Everyone else can kind of schedule around this. I feel like a lot of times we feel like everything's super urgent and like dire and important. And realistically, it can wait another day. It's not gonna
Yep.
be like the end of the world if you have a call on a Tuesday versus a Monday. So I think
Hmm.
just having that idea and kind of sticking to it and setting that boundary is gonna it helps you feel more comfortable, you have more space, you have more mental energy to actually put into the things that you're trying to do.
Yeah, it's funny. I like to say it's not brain surgery because I had brain surgery, so I can say that. I had a benign tumor removed, so I am totally allowed to say it's not brain surgery. And I think that's also given me a perspective of like, is it really that urgent? Do I
Mhm.
have to like, you know, ignore my own boundaries to make this person happy, to make this happen? No, I don't. It's not brain surgery. It's not dire. Nobody's going to die. We'll just push it to another day or another week. Not the end of the world. So, yes.
Exactly.
Reevaluate what's really important and if it's worth, pushing your own boundaries for this other person.
Absolutely. 100%. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this. This was so much fun. Like, even just talking to you about, I feel like everybody's hopefully has a little action plan that they can work through to make sure that they're, able to prioritize everything that matters and help reach those goals in their business. If anyone listening wants to learn more about you, connect with you, anything like that, where can they find you?
Yeah, so I'm most active on Threads these days, which is how we actually found each other to do this interview. So I'm Lauren G Consulting on Threads, and I also have a free gift for your listeners. I have a free mini course, 7 days to streamline your business. So if you're kind of overwhelmed with the processes in your business, you don't really understand all the work that you're putting in, you don't really have a defined workflow or things like that, this mini course can help you figure all of that out. It's all through email. It's really simple for you. So that's at laurenglynn.com/streamline, where you can go and sign up for that course. It's super simple and it'll help you kind of ease your way through all the overwhelm of your business.
Amazing. Well, we will put all of those links in the description for you. Thank you so much again for coming on with us today, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
Thanks so much for having me.